The fifth episode of Creature Commandos is available to watch now, but since I didn't have the time to make a full review on last week's episode, I figured I would do that just really quickly. So, the episode begins with Cersei showing Amanda Waller a vision of an apocalyptic future, where Princess Rostovik and her army overthrow various nations and kill numerous superheroes. After verifying that Cersei's powers are legitimate, Waller orders Flag to kill Rostovik, which he refuses since he's developed a bit of a relationship with the princess. But his refusal is no real problem for Waller, because she easily assigns the bride with leading Task Force M in Flag's place. When Flag returns home, he's ambushed by Eric, who has secretly been following Task Force M and came to believe that the bride is in love with Flag. But Flag, rather impressively I must admit, manages to hold his own against a fight with Eric and clears up the misunderstanding. The pair then agree to work together in order to stop Task Force M from killing Rostovik and to reunite Eric with the bride. But I don't know if this is a particularly good plan, since the bride doesn't seem overly fond of Eric, and Task Force M doesn't really have any loyalty to Flag. So I don't know what's going to happen when these two groups cross paths. But of course, the biggest reveal in episode 4 has to be the tragic backstory of Weasel. And while we don't really learn about his origins or anything, we do learn the tragic reason as to why he is in jail with all of the other monsters. Some time ago, Weasel encountered and befriended 8 school children, and while he posed no real threat to said children, an old man passing by the school believed that Weasel was a threat to them. In an attempt to kill Weasel, the man caused an explosion that killed him and most of the children. And while Weasel tried to save the last child, he ended up getting shot by the police, resulting in the child's death. Weasel was then arrested and incriminated for the death of every child, and his story eventually blew out of proportion, with people now believing that he violently killed 28 children for some reason. And yeah, that is a terribly sad and tragic story, but it also felt a bit predictable in my opinion. But that's only because episode 2 focused on the tragic backstory of the bride, and episode 3 focused on the tragic backstory of G.I. Robot. So these episodes kind of gave away the structure of James Gunn's writing pattern. So anyone could have guessed that Weasel's backstory was also going to be a tragic one, and given what we already knew about him, it was easy to predict how this episode was going to play out. But the predictability of the story didn't affect my overall enjoyment of the episode, because the story still provided me with new insight into Weasel's character. And it'll be interesting to see how that insight will affect our perception of Weasel going forward, or even backwards, since the Suicide Squad still seems to be canon at this point in time. And since this story did humanize his character a lot, I'm glad that the episode also showed us that Weasel does have somebody fighting for his rights. Because despite the fact that he may be a weird and weaselly creature, I have come to care about him, and I hope that he gets to have a happy ending within the DCU. Regardless, I'm looking forward to seeing how Gunn plans to break my heart in episode 5, so I'm gonna go ahead and watch that episode now. But I appreciate anyone who took the time to hear my late thoughts on last week's episode, so as always, thanks for watching.